This lecture is about the death of Queen Elizabeth II, who was queen for over 70 years and died at the age of 96 last month. Queen Elizabeth II was a seemingly eternal monarch. She was a symbol of continuity in the United Kingdom in her over 7 decades of ruling, and she died on September 8th at Balmoral Castle, which is her castle in the Scottish Highlands, at the age of 96. Her rule as queen began in February 1952 when her father died. Her father was King George VI. Elizabeth served as a constant and reassuring figure in Britain and on the world stage. She helped lead her country through a period of profound shifts in geopolitical power and national identity. Her last major constitutional action before she died was on September 6th, when she accepted the resignation of Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and she asked his successor, Liz Truss, to form a new government. When Liz Truss creates this new government, she will select her own new cabinet ministers, which are a group of advisors, to run departments like health and defense. Queen Elizabeth was a fixture for decades. Her monarchy dates back to at least the 10th century. And out of all of the rulers of this 10th century monarchy, hers was the longest. Her manner, her personality was stern, iron-like, and she always had a handbag with her, a purse. She remained fully engaged in her duties in her entire life. She completely remained true to a promise, a pledge that she made when she was 21 years old. At 21 years old, when she was queen, she said, "I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong." And the length of her service was astonishing. She served during the reign of 15 British prime ministers, 14 US presidents, and 7 popes. She appointed herself 6 different archbishops of Canterbury. She had a difficult time navigating the public's shifting attitudes about the royal family, and as the media exposed all their secrets. Yet, in 2012, at the time of her Diamond Jubilee, Queen Elizabeth's approval rating was 90%. Her Platinum Jubilee in 2022 marked her 70th year of queen. Now, in terms of length, pomp, and place in British society, this kind of queen will never happen again. Actually, Queen Elizabeth never expected to be queen. You see, her mother was a princess. Her mother, whose name was also Elizabeth, she was a Scottish princess. Her father, Albert, was the Duke of York, and he was the second son of King George at the time. Now, normally it's the first son who becomes king, and actually that is what happened. The Queen's father's brother, he became king. He was Edward. He became king in 1936. But after 1 year of being king, he gave up the throne because he wanted to marry an American woman. And to do that as king, you have to give up the throne. So that means that Elizabeth's father, King George VI, became king. Suddenly Elizabeth was 10 years old, and her father was now unexpectedly the king, which means that one day she would be queen. Then World War II started, and it ended when she was 19 years old. Now, while during the war, some people said, you need to leave the country and go to Canada, but she did not. She stayed in England, and she joined the army. And it was then that she found her life's companion, Prince Philip. Prince Philip, well, he wasn't a prince yet, he was just Philip, but he was a young British officer in the British Navy. They met and fell in love and got married in 1947, just after World War II. They had a storybook marriage, a radiant princess and a dashing blonde naval officer. This foreshadowed the royal weddings that would come later in our lifetime. Prince Charles and Princess Diana, and Prince William and Kate Middleton. Queen Elizabeth had 4 children: Charles, Anne, Andrew, and Edward, all of whom are still alive. With her death, her oldest son, Prince Charles, will become the new king of England. He will be known as Charles III. Elizabeth and Philip, back when they were children, they had anticipated a long reign for their father, George VI, and thought she would just have a pretty normal life. But then in the winter of 1952, after just 16 years of being king, Elizabeth's father, George VI, died. The following year, Elizabeth's crowning provided a much-needed dose of glamour and optimism. The country was suffering from post-war troubles and a drop in global influence. Her coronation took place at Westminster Abbey on June 2nd, 1953. Now, as a result of her long time as queen, Elizabeth had a significant behind-the-scenes advisory role to the succession of British prime ministers, who, every Tuesday, would come to the palace to have a meeting with her. In those sessions between her and the prime minister, she would offer the political leader of the day secret advice from her unique perspective about national life and knowledge of foreign leaders and foreign diplomats. As the monarch of England, of 15 realms of the Commonwealth and more than 50 nations, Elizabeth kept Britain closely linked to its former territories. At Balmoral, her Scottish castle, the public got glimpses of how she might have lived if she wasn't queen. She would often spend her time there in the English countryside in green rubber boots, walking around in the mud with a big gaggle of muddy Welsh corgis, a type of dog. She had many dogs. She had a very small, trusted circle of friends and relatives who she would decompress with from public life. But even in public, her friends and relatives would bow to her and curtsy to her in greeting. And according to her biographer, Sally Smith, she maintained a certain distance, even from those close to her. In a rare reflective mood during a speech to the Commonwealth leaders in 2011, Queen Elizabeth spoke a quote that was an Aboriginal proverb to express her feelings at the time. She said, "We are all visitors to this time, this place. Our purpose here is to observe, to learn, to grow, to love. And then we return home."